Good evening, everyone. At least it's evening here in Finland, north of the Arctic Circle. And so Tuija and I are here in the Little Bear Meditation Center, doing our best with the change of equipment and so forth. But we'll do our best to get this program to you without the interference of storms and winds and all that kind of thing that can descend upon one up here in the Arctic. So today we're going to work on the idea of citizenship. There's so much going on in the world that shows that people care far more about their individual success and prosperity than they do about the groups in which they live, and they're selfish, basically, caring more about their own welfare than they care about their group, their nation, humanity, and even the planet. Of course, since reincarnation is not yet well understood, naturally they think they have one life to live and they're going to get the most out of it, or should we say take the most out of it. So this leads to some very selfish behavior. Unfortunately, we're right in the middle of it right now, and so we'll deal with that. Now, usually I'm able to show you the text from the Destiny of the Nations, from which I will be reading a little, but for some reason at the moment I can't do that. So just pay close attention, and I think you'll get something out of it. We're at that stage around page 29, page 30 of the Destiny of the Nations, where we're talking about the contrast, a very important contrast between the sixth ray and the seventh. It's been so powerful, this sixth ray, as the subsidiary ray, Now let's see here. I've just got to make sure that something very interesting happened. I just seem to have lost that from which I was reading. Now that's not too good, is it? But I'll recover soon, if all goes well. So just bear with me a little bit here. And I think we're reaching the point. Page 29 and page 30. Okay. Now, the sixth ray has been extremely powerful, and for 2,000 years, really. And sometimes when we look at these equinoctial ages, precessional ages, DK even counts 2,500 years. But it is a separate cycle. It's not that when there's an age of Pisces, that there's always a sixth ray accompanying it. Any one of the rays could accompany an age of Pisces, and any one accompany an age of Aquarius. In this particular case, it's going to be the seventh ray, which is a very good fit because of the power of Uranus in that particular sign. So there's been a great rhythm set up, a great momentum, and there are reactionary people that just don't want to go into the future. There are always in any evolutionary system the so-called laggards, and they it was so with the previous solar system, and it may have been so with the moon chain, and DK calls them now, and how they're demonstrating the reactionaries, the conservatives, the diehards, the fanatics, who hold on to all that is of the past and whose influence is potent to hinder the progress of humanity into the new age. We're witnessing that at this time in the political arena, as there is a recrudescence of older ways of doing things and a kind of trembling at the threshold of the new possibilities. But meanwhile, the seventh ray is coming in, and ever since the time of Francis Bacon, a great seventh ray soul who became the Comte de Saint-Germain, and who we now know as Master R. Rakotsi, with his third ray monad, I believe, and his seventh ray soul. Well, he is now, as of 1925, the Lord of civilization. And so this is setting the new standard. And a large number of seventh ray souls, or egos as DK calls them, and also men and women with seventh ray personalities will be coming into incarnation now. And to them is committed the task of organizing the activities of the new era and of ending the old methods of life and the old crystallized attitudes to life, to death, to leisure, and to population. Well, that's a big span, isn't it? Life, death, leisure, and population. Old attitudes will die under the impression of the Uranian seventh ray, the soul of that planet, being in all probability the seventh ray. And the financial system will be reorganized, we're told, under certain seventh ray initiates of the first degree. And it will, right now it's in the hands of many who are using the third ray in a manipulative manner for their own personal benefit, regardless of the larger context in which they live, which is ultimately humanity and the planet. No? They are interested, in their own welfare. So that takes us to the place where we were last time. And the third point in this series, the result of the increasing flow of seventh ray energy plus the decreasing influence of the sixth ray. DK tells us pretty much it's going to be out of incarnation by the end of this century, and certainly by the beginning of the Aquarian age, 2117. So seventh ray energy is increasing. 6-ray energy is decreasing, and the result, which shows itself as a pronounced crystallization of the standardized and accepted forms of belief, religious, social, and philosophic. Well, you know what happens when you have crystallization. It's the stage before destruction. And the hammer of Vulcan, a largely first-ray planet, can easily break the crystallized forms with the impression of the spiritual will. So the crystallization, yes, it will be brought by the increasing seventh ray. It will touch what we believe, how we worship, what we think is spiritual, our social patterns, and how we look at the planet, the solar system, and the larger picture in general. So it's to throw the millions of people who do not respond to either of the above influences through egoic or personality relation into a state of bewilderment. I mean, suppose you're not functioning on the sixth ray or the seventh, and yet everything around you is being guided by the incoming of the one and the exit of the other. Then what's going on? These other people, and probably we can name, some of us can name ourselves among them, will feel lost, except for the fact that the people here are studying carefully, and that is a great source of guidance. So anyway, but these people who are neither the reactionaries nor the progressives, they feel entirely lost, are gripped by the idea that life holds for them no desirable future. All that they have learned to cherish and to hold dear is rapidly failing, and nothing is taking its place. Now, this was written 70 years ago, and let's look around at the changing civilization. I mean, you can certainly see the cleavage between the forms and practices induced by the sixth ray and that which is coming in increasing measure under the seventh. So anyway, these three groups of people, influenced by the sixth and seventh rays, or who are bewildered by the impact of forces generated by those rays, are those who must together, with understanding and clear vision, bring order out of the present chaos. They must materialize those new and desirable conditions which will conform to the subjective pattern in the minds of the illumined people of the world. And let's think of the new group of world servers who are offering the vision, under Taurus, which rules them, offering the vision to humanity of a better future. So new conditions according to the vision offered by the new group of world servers are required. New conditions. So conditions which conform to the subjective pattern in the minds of the illumined people of the world, and to the spiritual plan as it exists in the consciousness of the members of the hierarchy, and just a little bit in our consciousness as we begin to absorb it from the members of the hierarchy. So the New Age, with its peculiar, we might say distinctive civilization, probably unlike anything that humanity has yet experienced, with its peculiar civilization and culture, will be brought into manifestation through the collaboration of the well-intentioned many, responsive increasingly to the good of the whole and not of the individual. And you do see how we are slipping back into lower Leo, which, of course, the positive part of Leo is totally brilliant and masterful, but the lower part of it is egotistical. And so often, when the Black Lodge or the Lords of Form have had an influence, as they are having strongly now, the sign Leo has been involved, whether in Rome or the period of the French kings, or through Hitler, who had Leo powerful in his higher chart, says the Tibetan, or Japan with its rising sun. There have been moments of impression, and Leo can work out to inhibit, especially at this time, the advance into the Aquarian age. So we're working here for the good of the whole. And that's something we have to question ourselves about. And not just the individual good. They are the idealistic, yes, but practical thinkers, influenced by the pattern of things to come. Because they intuit that, and they see that in their visions. And if they don't see the visions, then they are at least impressible, susceptible to the clearer vision given by the new group of world servers. They are the world disciples, impressed by the plans and under the instruction of the hierarchy, which is directing and controlling all. And I dare say, if we think about our work together, I think we will find, that we are this type of person faced with a very great challenge, as the influence of the sixth ray with its reactionary, backward-looking tendencies is really recrudescing at this point, and before it goes out in a blaze of glory, And we don't know how that will be, but there are many, many sixth-ray souls, and the majority of personalities among humanity today are of the sixth ray, as well as the third ray, which has a direct relation to the sixth ray. So it is with these three groups of people, and with the work upon which they are engaged, that any prevision I may evidence will consistently deal. The DK is talking here. All changes in connection with the human family, the fourth kingdom and nature, are always dependent upon three factors. And I think that's the place where I will leave it. Maybe it's better to take little bites and, chew them well and absorb what they have to say rather than to try to cover too much. We still have some few years before the incoming, let's just say before the Great Conclave. It is the moment when I think I told about this earlier. It's the halfway point of a 700-year seventh ray cycle. So from that perspective, it's really important. The year 2025 of the Great Conclave is the middle moment for the great 700-ray seventh ray cycle. And as DK tells us, definite steps will be taken in the actual beginning phases of the actual externalization of the hierarchy. So that's a very exciting, spiritually exciting prospect, and we have to prepare for it. Okay, so let's see if I can well, I'll have to come back to this later. I like to mark where I've been, so I don't get lost on those occasions when there are readings from The Destiny of the Nations. Still a very, very useful book, even though many new nations have taken form, and they are not yet either physically or psychologically in the state that the long-term developed nations are. Nations like France, and England, the United Kingdom, that grouping. I mean, these are well established nations. Even the United States has been with us for more than 200 years, and the German Federation was occurring in the 19th century. So the German people, though being very old, but the national method being relatively newer, and of course Japan and China and India, ancient, and the heir, some of them, to the Atlantean wisdom. So there will always be the new nations, and we have to see what we expect of these nations and what is the best they can bring about. So this will be the end of Destiny of the Nations, and our date here is the 5th, and what I suspect maybe early morning on the 12th, Tuija and I are traveling, and we'll have to see whether we can offer this continuation on the 12th. We'll see. And there will be, of course, the full moon in Libra coming up, a sign so important regarding right human relations and right international relations. It just so happens, I think, that this is so-called Columbus Day. Not everybody is so happy about Columbus Day, but at least it shows the pioneering effort to open up new areas of expression. So, now we will work with a little meditation. I'm going to abbreviate this. But let us all gather together and somehow absorb the white light. Let us absorb this light of the soul and let it pour through our vehicles. And let us see the light invigorating the triangles, network, and also any particular triangles with which we may be involved, sending love and goodwill on the one hand and light on the other, and eventually sending the will to good around the triangles and into the network, which is a network which must be built. It must go on, and it's all part of the great transformation. It helps the soul, sometimes called triangle, the triangle, enter etherically and stimulate the dense physical plane from soul levels. And we just review for a moment. There are presently 5 planetary centers. There will be 6 in the next root race and 7 in the 7th root race. And some of the continents that may well hold such centers haven't even arisen yet. You know, we're only halfway through our evolution, but all of us are under, at this time, either New York, London, or Geneva. Speaking of very active cities and centers, with London bringing in the building aspect of the first ray, and Geneva the second ray in a pure form, although it's a first ray city. That's interesting, such a combination of rays 1 and 2. And New York, the idealistic 6th ray. And both Tokyo and Darjeeling bringing in different aspects of the first ray. Darjeeling, very esoteric, and Tokyo more external and manifestational, but let's just say DK said, please advance the triangles work among the Japanese, because they have a peculiar ability with it. So what are we under here, you know? Where do we live? And how are we stimulated according to the planetary center in which our particular nation, with which our particular nation is affiliated. So, you know, we can see that much of Europe will have that great second ray emerging under Geneva. And much of what was the British Empire or British Commonwealth, or now, you know, an association of related countries, they will have that first ray in its service mode, its attitude of justice for all under law. We remember about Roman law. It shows the first ray nature of Rome, and so many of the English, or those, especially the English, in Great Britain, so many are reincarnated Romans, we're told. And then, of course, the idealism of the Americas, United States and South America, with Canada being part of the Americas in a way, but also under the British aggregation. So these things can be studied, and we can learn how to relate with the right kind of energy to the larger whole. There's a picture of the 5 planetary centers. You know, the day will come, what is your citizenship? Well, right now we tend to say, well, I'm a citizen of such and such a nation. And the day will come, well, I'm a citizen of the human family, spread out all over the world. And the day will come that I am a citizen of the earth, whether globe, chain, or scheme. So, we do have a responsibility in this area. A lot of people involved in esotericism don't take a whole lot of interest in politics, but DK says, why not? Because through the political system, you can affect, influence so many millions. So it's something that is due our consideration. We're not all on the first ray, and we're not all necessarily working in the political field, but to take an interest and to feed the good through this system with one's mind and imagination. This is important. And with things happening fast now, with negative beings trying to block the way for humanity into the Aquarian age, we have to learn how to work esoterically to allow proper entry for humanity into the Aquarian age. It's a rather, a lot of people think the astral plane is something really, really beautiful. I suppose there are, beautiful aspects. A lot is deep illusion and glamour, and here an image which shows how it really is. Covered by the fogs and mists and steam and distortion and a condition that has to be clarified, and the internal method of doing that has been given to us. All of this, of course, we have to recognize that the Christ is the great leader of the hierarchy, in which we find the custodians of the plan, of the divine plan. And still higher, but in hierarchy, are the registrants of the purpose, probably 6th-degree initiates. But we have to realize why we are seeking for the political, social, international transformation which is possible. All this is under the guidance of the Christ and something very important to hierarchy. So let us align with the great Lord. And offer our little bit of work here to Him as He attempts to produce right human relations, right relations within a nation, international relations, planetary relations which are correct. And so we will say, we have gathered in your name, Lord Maitreya, be with us. So many problems to solve. For the welfare of everybody. It can't all be done at once, but by the end of the Aquarian age and its age of brotherhood toward the end under Venus, a lot of what looks so impossible now will be solved. Now, this particular group of slides on my little computer goes on and tells the story of the boys rescued from the cave. And that was a great international effort requiring sacrifice and great heroism. But it is possible for everybody to transcend their own selfish interests and get together, work together, regardless of nationality, and do good things which might not be able to be done if the selfish attitude, the self-centered attitude was preserved. We might say, leaders and organizers and divers from many nations all cooperated in rescuing that group in the dark, cut off by water. What a symbol. So now I just want to take up a little bit a question. We look right now at polarization in the world. Basically, the reactionaries, influenced by the sixth ray somehow, are fighting with the progressives, those who want to move forward according to the divine plan. This doesn't mean you don't hang on to the values of the past, which are sound and solid. That's why DK said the fourth ray is so important, that it permits no abrupt break to occur between the past and the present, and the values of the past are preserved. But of course, there are those forces today that really want to take us backwards. Now, where do we stand with that? Each one of us. What's our orientation? And when we look at these two groups, what comes to your mind as you ponder the directions in which the people involved in these two groups are moving? What comes to your mind? See, we've gone through a very karmic period. we're not quite through the earliest degrees of Pisces because, we're moving apparently backwards in this thing called the precession of the equinoxes, and we have not dispensed with the orientation of the vernal equinox toward the very beginning degrees of Pisces. I think, we're sort of somewhere in the second degree. And before long we'll be moving to the first degree backwards with its duration of 72 years just about before we are free of this energy. A very important energy, but functioning at the moment in an inhibitory manner. Now you're aware of this movement. You are students of esotericism. You're aware that we're in a stormy period where both Pisces and Aquarius are somehow overlapping. There's some kind of 500-year overlap period, and we've been in that a long time, and it's just winding up. So think about your citizenship in your country, and progressively with humanity in all countries. Ponder on this, your soul's citizenship in your own country, and your citizenship in a progressive humanity which is moving towards the fifth kingdom. Let's have some pondering time on that. You may have spent, as a national of a particular country, quite a bit of time there. Maybe you're, expatriate, you're living elsewhere. Well, maybe you're just a world traveler moving all the time and have to think about the larger picture. But what are your obligations here? What does your country need? Let's just say whatever country you choose as your country. What does it need? And how are you reinforcing, adding to those soul qualities it needs, and helping to minimize the qualities which are obstacles to the emergence of soul quality? Now, most esoteric groups are combinations of members with a powerful first ray or second ray, especially in the soul. There will be, of course, a lot of seventh ray esoteric groups, but right now, those who fare the best seem to be on the first ray and the second. So, think of it. Think what's going on today. All this doubt being raised about the value of communications and the press. Dictators in their intention are rising. And yet if the first ray worked properly, we could assert the fact and banish all of this lying and fakery. It gets really confusing, These people are using the third ray to confuse those who want to know where they're going. But we could assert the fact and let the facts speak for themselves, and in a way that's happening. The combination of the first and fifth rays, the fact-checking which is going on to keep people clear in their minds so they know what to do next. And then, of course, the second ray. I see the greatest light. This second ray is very inclusive, and the second method of inducing soul control is called the quality of the hidden vision. And we know that where there is no vision, the people perish. And not just a glamorous vision, because they'll perish under a glamorous vision too. So here is the second ray, which characterizes quite a number of DK students, offering a truer vision, which the students can then offer to humanity in the most tactful and effective way. That's really important, to help reorient people by offering them a vision which stimulates their incentive towards the fulfillment of that vision. That's one of our big jobs. Now that these are general things, and of course, depending upon your country, its personality and soul ray, its astrological signs, and planetary, potencies. So will be that kind of version of the vision which a country can present. So your citizenship in that nation, your citizenship in humanity, it is sacrificial, isn't it? You're not just thinking of yourself. You're willing to If you achieve high office, you're willing to function for the good of the people, and you put your financial concerns into a blind trust. So you keep your hands off it, and you don't work for a conflict of interest. And you are transparent, and you offer your tax returns to be seen so people will understand who they're really dealing with. And you realize that if you're in high position in your nation, it's for all of the people, not just some of them. But today there is a reign of selfishness. But that can be overcome by the majority if they are presented with a real incentivizing vision, something that really excites and mobilizes and stimulates in the right direction. So let's find our mode of service, find our responsibility to the larger group of which we are a part, make sure that responsibility is carried out in line with the proper contribution of our particular nation, and let's really, according to our abilities, raise astrology, help humanity, and realize our obligation to the larger picture till we really do become a citizen, not only of humanity, but of the entire planet, with all of its kingdoms in nature. It's an expansion, and it's being offered now. Remember how Aquarius uses the Jupiterian energy, and how Aquarius is the sign of universality. We don't have to mistakenly double down, as they say, on our own selfishness, asserting that selfish position as if it were the correct one. So friends, think about your citizenship in the various spheres in which it is offered. And we're going to close our meditation here with the idea of the redemption of humanity and the eventual redemption of the planet. So we'll sound the great invocation. And think, not just personally, but in terms of the welfare of all nations, of humanity, of the planet and its kingdoms in nature. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Okay, friends, Tuija and I invite you for tomorrow night. We'll deal with what DK calls the crux of the whole problem, and that is the financial problem, the giving of adequate sums to really carry on this work. Christ is not coming on a white horse as the all-conquering hero. It's a lot more sophisticated than that, and the human financial system has to be invoked and regenerated. So that will be at 5 p.m. tomorrow and GMT. And there's usually not too much going on the Monday and Tuesday, but I'll try to notify you because I've been working with webinars for identification as being, trying to give people a sense of wholeness and oneness. And of course the great synthetic book that the Tibetan wrote, and out of which he wrote many other books, is a treatise on cosmic fire, and we are trying to find a time that would be best to offer consideration of that great synthesis in detail, according to meticulous entirety, the method of Master DK. So thank you for being with us, and just a few of us here tonight. But Tuija and I persist in this because we're not judging by numbers. We're judging by quality and the fact that the meditation has to keep going and have continuity. So many blessings and lots of love, and we'll be with you before long.